Let's go Ravens! Something is happening behind the scenes in Baltimore that could completely change the direction of this team in 2026, and most fans still have no idea how big this really is. But before I tell you why this could be a turning point for the entire defense, make sure you hit that like button right now if you truly believe in this team. And I want to see the real ones in the comments. Type, I'm optimistic, Ravens are coming back stronger in 2026. Now let's get straight into it, because this is the kind of update that can completely change the outlook of this defense heading into 2026. To understand why today's news matters so much, we need to rewind back to week 2 of last season. That was the moment when defensive tackle Nam Dave went down against the Cleveland Browns. At first, it didn't seem like something that would keep him out long term. Maybe a few weeks, nothing more. But even then, it was already a huge loss for Baltimore. Through those first 2 weeks, Nami Medvik had been one of the few bright spots on the entire defense. He looked explosive, disruptive, and honestly, it felt like he had rediscovered the form that made him such a key piece before. We're talking about 7 combined tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 9 quarterback pressures, and an impressive pressure rate around 13.4%. Those are not just solid numbers, those are impact numbers that change games. But then everything shifted. What initially seemed manageable quickly escalated when he was placed on season-ending IR. And once the details started coming out, a neck injury, the conversation changed completely. This wasn't just about missing games anymore. This was about long-term health, about his career, and even about his life after football. Neck injuries are no joke, especially for a player at such a physical position. There were real doubts, serious doubts. Questions started circulating about whether we had already seen the last of Nan Deb BK in a Ravens uniform. Even John Harbaugh, when asked, didn't give any reassurance. He made it clear that the situation was complex and that answers would have to come from the player himself when the time was right. That silence spoke volumes. But here's where things start to turn, and this is why today feels so important. Over the last couple of months, there's been a growing sense of hope. Small signs at first, nothing concrete, but enough to make you pay attention. And today, that hope got stronger. We've now seen another update on his progression. Photos, videos, real evidence of him putting in work at the gym. And not just light activity, we're talking about sled pulls, single leg squats, controlled but meaningful movements that show progress, especially considering the nature of his injury. And when you're dealing with a neck injury, every single step matters. Every rep, every movement, every video clip. This isn't something you rush. This is something you build carefully. So seeing him actively training again is not just encouraging, it's significant. We've even seen clips recently of Nami Mabit doing explosive movements like slamming a medicine ball from his knees. That kind of force, that kind of motion, it tells you he's regaining confidence in his body. And that's something you cannot fake. He's also been dropping subtle hints on social media, almost like a wide receiver teasing a comeback. Back in late January, he posted good news with praying hands. Since then, there have been reports from Jesse Minter that he's been around the facility. And now, with consistent workout updates, it's becoming harder and harder to ignore what this is pointing toward. A return in 2026 is starting to feel real. And if that happens, it changes everything for this defense. Think about it, pairing Namdi with the arrival of Jesse Minter as the new defensive play caller. That alone elevates this unit. Add in names like Mike Green entering year 2, Travis Jones, and the addition of Trey Hendrickson in free agency, and suddenly this defensive line has a completely different identity. This isn't just improvement, this is transformation. Last season, depth and injuries forced Baltimore into difficult situations. There were stretches where the defensive line simply didn't have the firepower. But now, with a healthy Nami potentially returning, you're looking at a unit that can dominate on third down, apply consistent pressure, and control the line of scrimmage. And it doesn't stop there. His return could also shift draft strategy. Before these updates, there was real discussion about targeting a defensive tackle in the first round. But now, maybe that urgency isn't there anymore. Maybe the Ravens can afford to be more flexible, to address other needs early and look at depth options on day 2 instead. That's how impactful this situation is. One player, one recovery, one comeback story that could reshape the entire defense. Picking up right where we left off, because this is where things get even more interesting for the Baltimore Ravens moving forward. When you really sit down and analyze what a healthy return of Nami Medvik means, it's not just about adding a good player back into the lineup, it's about restoring an identity that this defense clearly missed last season. Think about those early weeks again. The disruption, the pressure, the way he was able to collapse the pocket from the interior, that changes how opposing offenses have to game plan. You can't just focus on the edges anymore. You can't just double team the outside rushers. When you've got someone like Namdi anchoring the middle and consistently generating pressure, everything opens up for the rest of the defensive line. And that's where this potential 2026 unit becomes dangerous, because now you're not relying on one or two players to carry the load. You're talking about a complete group that can rotate, stay fresh, and attack in waves. Mike Green stepping into year 2 with more experience under Jesse Minter's system, Travis Jones continuing to develop, and Trey Hendrickson bringing that veteran presence and pass rushing ability. It all starts to come together. But let's not overlook something else that's just as important here: confidence. When a player comes back from a serious injury, especially something like a neck issue, the biggest hurdle isn't always physical, it's mental. And based on everything we've seen, from the workouts to the social media hints, to being back inside the facility, it feels like Nami is building that confidence step by step. That matters, because a confident Namdi is a disruptive Namdi, and a disruptive Namdi is exactly what this defense needs to take that next leap. Now let's connect this to the draft again, because this is where the front office has to make some very calculated decisions. With these positive updates, the urgency to spend a first-round pick on a defensive tackle might not be as strong as it once was. Instead, the Ravens can look at value on day 2, targeting players who can develop without the immediate pressure of being a day 1 starter. Names like Caleb Banks, despite the injury at the combine, could become intriguing options if he falls. Lee Hunter brings production and consistency, something that always translates well. Grayson Halton offers pass rushing upside from the interior, and Darrell Jackson Jr. looks physically ready for the next level. Then you've got Ron Benny, who already has that connection with Lou Esposito from Michigan, and we know how much familiarity can influence decisions in that draft room. So instead of drafting out of desperation, Baltimore can draft with flexibility. And that's when this organization is at its best. Everything we're seeing right now points to a team that is quietly setting itself up for a much stronger 2026 season. A healthier roster, improved coaching structure with Jesse Minter, and potentially the return of a key defensive cornerstone. These are not small developments. These are the kind of shifts that can turn a good defense into a dominant one. And let's be honest, Ravens fans, if this defense becomes dominant again, paired with what we already expect from the offense, this team is going to be right back in the conversation where it belongs. And this is exactly why the next few weeks are going to be absolutely critical for the Baltimore Ravens, because everything we're talking about right now is still building toward one final confirmation: seeing Nami Medvik fully cleared and ready to take the field again. Until that moment happens, there will always be that small layer of uncertainty, and the Ravens know that. That's why, even with all this optimism, they're still doing their homework. They're still evaluating defensive tackle prospects, still preparing contingency plans, and still making sure that if something doesn't go as expected, this defense won't be caught off guard like it was at times last season. But here's what makes this situation feel different: the consistency of the progress. This isn't just one random workout clip. This isn't just one vague report. We're seeing a pattern. Multiple updates, continued activity, increasing intensity. And that's what gives this story real weight. You can tell the organization is watching closely. You can tell the coaching staff is already thinking about how to reintegrate him into the system. Because if he comes back anywhere close to the level we saw in those first 2 weeks, he doesn't just slot back into the lineup. He immediately becomes one of the most important pieces of this entire defense. And let's take it one step further. Imagine a scenario where everything clicks. Namdi returns healthy. Mike Green makes that year 2 leap. Trey Hendrickson delivers the kind of pass rush he's known for, and Jesse Minter successfully implements his system. Now you're not just talking about improvement, you're talking about a defense that can dictate games. A defense that can get off the field on 3rd down.